Hey folks, welcome to another video. Thanks for joining us. Today we're going to be talking about the Surly Karate Monkey and the Surly Krampus. These are two of our favorite Surly bikes. So a while back we did another video comparing the Surly Bridge Club and the Surly Ogre. It was a very popular video, go check it out. But a lot of the comments there were, hey, why not do the Krampus and the Karate Monkey? So we're going to do that today. We're going to talk a little bit about both bikes, what makes them similar, what makes them different. And at the end, we're going to try to help you decide which of these two bikes should you buy. So stay tuned till the end and we'll cover it all right here. But before we get started, we want to hear from you. What do you think of the Krampus? What do you think of the Karate Monkey? Do you currently have one? Are you thinking about buying one? What's your preference? We want to hear from you below. So let's get the conversation started in the comments. So without further ado, let's get going. All right, folks, here we have all four of the currently available Karate Monkey and Krampus variations. And we're going to talk about each one individually, but before we do, let's talk about the big picture. So Surly currently positions the Karate Monkey as the 27.5-inch wheel size mountain bike or trail bike. And the Krampus is the 29-inch wheel size trail bike. So that's the biggest difference between the Karate Monkey and the Krampus. At least that's currently how Surly positions it. There's a lot more to that story, and we're going to go into those details in a minute, so stay tuned for that. But that's the biggest difference between the Karate Monkey and the Krampus, at least the way they market them today. Now, within each model, they have a fully rigid version of the bike and a suspension version of the bike. So that's why there's four different models. Two Karate Monkey and two Krampus. There are differences in each of those, so we'll go through that in detail in just a minute. Okay, so let's first talk about pricing for these two bikes. The Karate Monkey and the Krampus are priced exactly the same. The fully rigid bike is $1,849, and the suspension bike or the hardtail is $2,599, and that's US dollars current pricing. Surly's identity and uniqueness has always been tied to their use of different wheel sizes and tire widths. And the Karate Monkey and Krampus are certainly examples of that, and so it's important to remember that as we talk about the story of both bikes. So let's start with the Karate Monkey, and before we do, let's talk a little bit about the history of this bike, and I think that will help you explain how Surly currently positions the Krampus and the Karate Monkey today. So it's actually a pretty interesting story, so let's get into that. Surly introduced the Karate Monkey all the way back in 2002. That's right, the Karate Monkey has been around for 22 years. When the Karate Monkey was introduced, it was a 29er, and in fact, many people credit Surly with introducing the first 29er production bike on the market. So Surly introduced the Krampus in 2012, so that's 10 years after the Karate Monkey, and at the time the Krampus was also a 29er. The difference was that the Krampus used a 3-inch wide tire on the production bike, whereas the Karate Monkey was set up with a 2.3-inch wide tire. So the Krampus was really a response to the fat tire craze, which frankly Surly started as well, in giving the Krampus a wider tire profile versus the thinner tired Karate Monkey, but they were both 29-inch wheel size. So it wasn't until 2017 that the Karate Monkey actually came out with a 27.5 inch wheel size. So that really brings us up to today, where the biggest difference in the Karate Monkey and the Krampus is the wheel size. The Karate Monkey with the 27.5 and the Krampus with the 29er wheel. And if you compare the frames of the two bikes, and you can do that using bike insights, you'll see that the frames are very, very similar, with just a few minor adjustments to the Krampus to handle the larger wheel size. But you can always put a 29-inch wheel on the Karate Monkey, so both frames are able to accept both wheel sizes, with some exceptions that I'll explain later. So while we're talking about similarities, also I want to explain that the Krampus and the Karate Monkey can both be set up as single speed. They have a sliding dropout. They also use the Surly knot boost spacing, which allows you to accept a boost size wheel, 148 millimeter, or a non-boost mountain bike wheel, 142 millimeters. And both bikes also accept through axle hubs on both the front and rear, and they can also, with some adapters, take quick release. So one of the things that surprised me is that they both weigh in about the same. The Karate Monkey weighs in at 32 pounds 4 ounces, and the Krampus, even with the larger wheels, comes in at 32.12 ounces. So very similar. And I should point out that both of these are size large. Alright, so let's go into some of the details of the fully rigid Surly Karate Monkey. So the color is fermented plum. Kind of looks a little bit purple. The fork, of course, has all the different mounting points. You can put a rack on the front, put a rack on the back. The brakes are Avid BB5 180 millimeter disc brakes. The tires are the Surly Dirt Wizard 27.5 by 3. So you get the 3-inch tire on the fully rigid bike. All right, so this bike, the Karate Monkey fully rigid, has a Shimano Dior 12-speed drivetrain, 1x with an 11 by 51 rear cassette. Got a Shimano Dior crankset. This bike has a rigid seat post. Standard Shimano Dior shifters. All right, so now let's get into the suspension version of the Karate Monkey. This bike comes in a peach salmon Sunday color. All right, so of course the biggest difference between the rigid Karate Monkey and the suspension Karate Monkey is the fork. So we have RockShox 35 fork with 140 millimeters of travel, 15 by 110 millimeter axle, through axle. So of course that's the biggest difference, but that's not the only difference. We also have a dropper post on this version of the Karate Monkey. Lever up here. We also get a drivetrain upgrade here. So the suspension Karate Monkey has Shimano Dior XT, has the same rear cassette, 11 by 51, but The crankset is an FSA Comet with a 30-tooth chainring. So big change there. Also tire size, we have 27.5 by 2.8, so a little bit narrower tire. The brakes are also Tektro Gemini SL hydraulic disc brakes. So that's another difference. So for the extra money, you get not just the suspension fork, but also a couple of other nice upgrades. All right, so for the fully rigid Krampus, of course, we have the Surly fork with all of the mounting points. The color of the fully rigid Krampus is British Racing Green. We have the Surly Dirt Wizard 29 by 3-inch tires. All right, so moving down to the drivetrain, we have the same drivetrain that's on the fully rigid Karate Monkey. It's the Shimano Dior 12-speed with the 11 to 51 rear cassette. We have the Shimano Dior crankset with a 30-tooth chainring. We also have the fully rigid seat post and Avid BB5 brakes. So yeah, basically spec'd out just like the fully rigid Karate Monkey. All right, so when we step up to the suspension or hardtail Krampus, we get nose drip curry as the color, and I have to say one of my favorite names for a color, but also I kind of like it. I'm sure you either love it or hate it, but that's it. All right, so and similar to the Karate Monkey, very same pattern. We've got Shimano Dior XT drivetrain, 11 to 51 rear cassette, and the FSA Comet crankset with a 30-tooth front chainring. So yeah, follows the same pattern. We also have the dropper seat post and Tektro Gemini brakes. And for tires, we have Surly Dirt Wizard 29 by 2.6. So slightly thinner than the suspension Karate Monkey, but also very similar. Now the suspension fork on the Krampus is also the RockShox 35, but it is slightly different than the Karate Monkey in that it can accommodate a 29-inch wheel. All right, so it's very important to understand that if you get the Karate Monkey with the suspension fork, you cannot easily just swap the wheels and make it into a 29er. And that is because the front suspension fork is size specific. And to illustrate that, I've put both of these suspension bikes together and you can see the differences. So on the Karate Monkey on the left, the 27.5-inch wheel size, as you can see, the fork arch does not provide enough clearance to increase the wheel size to a 29-inch. It just won't fit. As you can see on the arch on the 29er, we have about the same amount of clearance between the tire and the fork. So if you move the 29-inch wheel over here, it's not going to work. So it's really fork specific. So if you do get a suspension Karate Monkey, you will need to get a different suspension fork if you want to convert it to a 29-inch. The rigid fork can handle a 29-inch wheel, so that is not a problem. It's only a problem if you purchase the Karate Monkey with the stock suspension fork. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, folks, so here we are at the end of the video, and it's time to answer the question, which Surly should you buy? And as you might have guessed, the answer comes down to, it depends. Let me explain. All right, so ultimately the decision is going to come down to whether you prefer a 27.5-inch wheel size or a 29-inch wheel size. So how do you decide? Well, there's a couple of considerations. One is the type of riding that you're going to do. Traditionally, the 27.5-inch wheel size is preferred by people who are doing single track, going to be doing a lot of twists and turns, you're going to be doing some switchbacks, and you want to have a little bit more agile ride quality. So the shorter wheelbase, the smaller wheel makes the bike a little more agile. On the flip side, if you're going to be riding over a lot of rocks and roots and you want to go faster in a straight line, the Krampus and the 29-inch wheel might be the preference for you. So that's one consideration. The second thing to think about is rider height. So in my opinion, the smaller wheel size is better for people that ride the smaller sizes. So extra small, small, medium. I'm a good example of that. I ride a medium and I prefer the smaller wheel size. I just think it feels better for me. Not everyone is going to share that opinion, but if you're a larger rider, you ride a large bike, extra large bike, then you might consider the larger wheel size of the Krampus to be a better fit. But ultimately, in order to make a final decision, you really should try to test ride both bikes. I get people all the time that come in, they've heard that they need a 29er, so they look at the Krampus, they ride the Karate Monkey, and they like the way it feels better. On the flip side, we get people that are the opposite. They come in thinking they want a Karate Monkey, they go out and test ride the Krampus, and they like the feel of that bike better. So ultimately, if you can test ride both bikes, make up your own mind, that's the best way to go. But it's also important to keep in mind you are not locked into a decision. As I described before, you can fit a 29er wheel on a Karate Monkey and you can fit a 27.5-inch wheel on a Krampus. So you are able to switch with the exceptions that I described before if you have a suspension fork. So you're not locked in. And ultimately, that's really one of the things we love about Surly's. They're very flexible and allow you to customize them, make them your own, and the Krampus and the Karate Monkey are no exception to that. So all right, folks, so there you go. I hope you found this video helpful, and keep in mind, if you do want to test ride a Karate Monkey or a Krampus, we've got them right here at Ottawa Bike and Trail, so come down, test ride them. We'd love to help you make the decision for yourself. But until next time, get out and ride your bike and go out and get a Karate Monkey or a Krampus. You won't regret it. We'll talk to you all in the next video.